This video is all about the annuals that we've done from seed here in the garden. We're just gonna go through some of the top ones. We do lots and lots of things from seed here in the Raleigh garden, mainly just trying to save money. And we kind of enjoy taking a seed and taking it through the entire process of ending up with it in the garden and having it look good in the garden ultimately. And that, those steps that we go through. I have a ton of videos on the channel for seeding, for how to seed, the light rack that we use in the house. Obviously there's outdoor seeding methods, winter sowing methods, all kinds of ways that you can start seed. You do it the way that you are comfortable with and is successful for you. It may take you a few years to really perfect growing things from seed, but once you do, you can take a small packet of seed and turn it into things like this. We have quite a bit of color out here in the garden. These borders that we use around the front of our beds are really showing off. They've been a little slow this year just because we had a very cool May. We put everything in the exact same time we did last year. And last year, although last year was drier and we were having to water a lot, so I'll definitely take cooler May, and slowing them down a bit, but they were a little bit bigger last year. So we'll jump in and talk about a few, and we'll talk about how we've planted these a little later in the video as well. But the first one I want to address is the Profusion Zenias that are out here. There's a yellow one here, Steph will go down to in front of the camera. We have yellow and red and orange, single reds, double reds, lots of different zinnias in this Profusion Zenia group. This is a hybrid zinnia, and there's a video on the channel all about zinnias. If you want to learn about zinnias, we talked about how we grow them from seed. We talked about how useful they are as annuals, how great they are for pollinators in the garden. There are some giant zinnias, and we've grown some of those in the past. If you're watching the channel over the last 5 years, you've seen lots of different ones that we would have this year. But we really love these Profusion Zenias because they have a lot of disease resistance built in, a lot of resistance to powdery mildew. And here in the southeast, where it's really humid, we were walking out the door this morning and it's just sticky out here. Typical summer morning. And a lot of the taller zinnias get powdery mildew pretty badly, although there are some improved ones there as well. But these Profusion Zenias are just amazing. Again, they're hybrids between Angustifolia and elegans, I think, and they come in all different colors. They come up easily from seed. They're very easy to transition into the garden. We typically don't have rabbits messing with these. I want to say, is that right, Steph? I don't think they've ever messed with these, and we do have a rabbit issue here. I mean, we have very overpopulated rabbit population here in the neighborhood, and they will mess with some of our little, they love that tender new growth. So when you put something out like these zinnias in the spring and it gets hot outside and they start to grow really quickly, they have a lot of tender new growth on them. And that tender new growth is what those rabbits really hone in on. Once things are hardened off a little, they tend to mess with them a little bit less. But so these Profusion Zenias, most of them get about 18 inches tall, 2 to 3 feet wide over the course of the summer. They don't need to be deadheaded at all, but if they get a little wider than you need them, if they come into the path a little too far, we'll go through here and just cut them right off. It doesn't hurt them at all. 2 weeks later, they're right back growing and blooming again. But that's number one on our annuals from seed list. One of the other main reasons I think we did more from seed than we've ever done this year, is because when we go to buy annuals now, it kind of feels like there's less available overall. There's a lot of annuals there, but it feels like it's not a little less experimentation maybe with folks that are growing them in smaller containers, 4-packs and that kind of thing than there used to be. So it's a lot of the same stuff everywhere we go. And seed, you get a seed catalog and the world feels like it's more open to you. There's a lot of experimenting you can do. These are Tethonia, and Tethonia really, really easy from seed. You think about this. This seed was planted in a tray inside of our house, probably March 1st, somewhere right around there. And I am 6 feet tall. It is up on a curb, but these plants are 5 feet tall from March 1st to June 18th-ish as I'm filming this, which is absolutely incredible, right? There are some more compact. This is the thing about seed. We got the regular full-size Tethonia or Mexican sunflowers, and they're this tall. We did one a couple of years ago. If you're following along with the channel and these annual videos that we do each year, and you could probably search them on the channel just by the word annual or summer flower or something like that. You can go back and see year over year. We evolved this garden a bit, but we went for taller ones out here by the road. These are very drought tolerant. This is a tough place to grow. This is a tough little neighborhood out by the full sun, asphalt's in front of it. We don't water over here at all. We will have to get it off the conifer at some point. We won't let this lay on the conifer all summer long. But when you get something this tall that goldfinches really love, so we get the pollinators pollinating the open flowers, but then once the seed is set in there, the goldfinches come, and you can see the top of this thing just moving like this right here, where the goldfinches are tearing the seed out basically out of these. It's got interesting foliage, just an easy plant to add. I say, this is for us an annual here in the garden, very inexpensive because we only bought one seed packet and we're getting all this color out of it. This actually though is a perennial down in zone probably 9B to 11, something like that. This can be cut in half midsummer and it'll just come right back out of that. So at some point, it'll get taller than we want it, and then we'll just cut it in half if we need to, or cut it off of the conifer that's sitting next to it. I think the other things we'll shoot in the video are a little ahead of these fireworks Gumrina right now, but we wanted to talk about this fireworks Gumrina. We grow a lot of Gumrina typically in the front. If you were here for the open garden last year, the front garden, we used a lot of different Gumrina, and we rotate things out. And it's not because the Gumrina weren't great. We do that ping pong Gumrina series from seed. They're fantastic. So it's just more about coming up with something new each year. We do have a few in the back garden back there, but this particular Gumrina, fireworks Gumrina, gets quite a bit bigger. Those ping pong ones are more for our annual borders out there, more kind of slightly more formal shape to them. They're free flowing, but they're like this, easy to tame. These fireworks Gumrina will get 4 feet tall and 4 feet wide back here, and we put them behind this fence. This is an area we don't water. This is an area we don't maintain all that much. We come over here occasionally and are aghast at the weeds on the other side because we're not paying attention to it as much. But this plant just thrives over here, and we're early in the season. This one's already, as I'm holding it straight up and down, about 2.5 feet tall. They'll fill in this whole space that I'm standing in between this pomegranate and this cryptomeria or Japanese cedar right here. And we got another section of them a little further down. It's just this mound of purple and with a slight touch of yellow flowers on them. Pollinators absolutely going crazy for them. Just a fantastic plant. It kind of mounds on itself over the course of the season. So it's not like a formal little ball, but it kind of becomes a formal little ball, if that makes any sense. It just kind of does this all season, and then you'll look over here and they'll be this tall and they'll be fairly sturdy. It's got an interesting narrow foliage, just a great plant. One that easy to do from, I don't know if this is the easiest thing to do from seed. We don't always get 100% on these, so this is one that I'd probably put 2 or 3 seeds in each cell just to make sure that you're gonna get it covered. The beauty of seeds is there'll be a lot in that pack, and it won't be any big deal to put 3 in a single tray, or in a single little cell. But this is fireworks Gumrina. Definitely every year we're using Summer Jewels Salvia. This Summer Jewels series is just absolutely dynamite. This red and white that we have here is unbelievable how colorful it is. You can basically see it just moving with pollinators right now. And then we get a little later in the day, the bees and the flies and the little wasp. I don't think you'll be able to see that little wasp right there that Steph is trying to focus on. Just are here all day, and then we'll get the purple finches that will come in and take the seed. This is Salvia Cosinia, and it's actually native to the southeast United States and around to Mexico. So I don't think I've ever said that as part of talking about this plant at all. It is a perennial in like zone 8B and south. We typically, I don't think we ever have the plants actually come back. Maybe we've had 1 or 2 plants come back, but we do get them coming back from seed. And Steph had meant to have this border on the other side of this, what is that pink one called, Steph?
Coral nymph.
Coral nymph. She wanted the coral nymph, that pink one that's sticking up a little higher, and the white in that border, but those red ones that you see there that are in that border, which actually look great, are ones that came back from seed from last year. So the purple finches do miss a little bit of the seed, and they do come back. And then what we do, believe it or not, we'll decide whether to leave it there. In the case of those red ones that are in that border, she left like 3 in that border over there, so it's just, they're perfectly spaced in there. We've actually transplanted a few. If you have a bare spot in the garden where some other annual didn't do as well, you know, where they pop up, you'll identify after the 2nd or 3rd year of this. Some of these annuals that will reseed themselves, you'll know them immediately when they germinate in the garden. You'll know what the leaves look like when they first get their first true leaves. You'll know them, you recognize them, and then you can transplant them before they even bloom to some other place in the garden and use them or pull them. You know, maybe they're weeds for you that next year. But I don't think there's anything tougher here in the garden. They're in the Lamiaceae or the mint family, so that means the rabbits aren't going to eat them, the deer aren't going to eat them, so we don't have any of those kinds of pests. Nothing's drawing in more pollinators into the garden, and just overall, I think we've raved about these enough over the last 4 years for everybody's probably gone out. They're also super easy to do from seed. And you know, I put this right at the top of the list of if you're buying a lot of different seeds and you want a starter plant, you know, to get comfortable with doing seed in your garden, this would be at the top of my list. I mean, the zinnias over there too, the Profusion Zenias. But again, can't say enough about this. So real quick, these are planted in a compost and pine bark blend. So it's a fine pine bark and then compost. The rest of the bed here is not amended that way. But our dedicated annual beds, and we're gonna just have this little swath always probably be annuals here. So if I have a spot like that, and that includes my vegetable garden as well, we amend it with some compost. And every other season or every season we'll add a little bit of additional compost to it just to kind of refresh it a bit. What we're trying to do here, when you're buying an annual or a plant that we're using as an annual, this happens to be a perennial that we use as an annual here in our garden, meaning it lives for a season and then dies. You're trying to get as much out of it as you possibly can. I can plant this shrub back here, and if this shrub goes through a year transition period into the ground and struggles a bit, who cares? It's still gonna look good in 3 years from now. It'll break through, it'll figure it out. I don't have that luxury with these annuals, right? I don't have that luxury with tomatoes and peppers and the other things that we're using as annuals here in our garden. So that's why we're really amending that soil. So if you have a little corner bed and you want to do some flowers every year next to your sidewalk or something like that, if you put them in just the regular clay soil or your regular soil, they're not going to perform necessarily like this. So pick a spot out and start amending it. The first year your annuals won't look great maybe, but if you do a little bit more amending of that space each year, cow manure, some sort of compost, mushroom compost, I don't care what it is, a little bit each year, you'll see that they improve like these, you know, have year over year over year. Next up is Terrenia that we do from seed. I'll put the series name up on the screen. There's a yellowish one and a magenta one and a purple one. These are pretty easy to do from seed, where we've struggled a little bit with Terrenia in the past as we put them. These can take some morning sun, but they're really kind of typically would prefer midday and afternoon shade. And some of the shadier spaces we have in this garden are a bit dry, and they have not liked really, really dry shade. But we moved them to some spaces that are a little bit more generally overall moist, and they've hit the ground running this year. But another one that we never struggle with the seed, and then we get them in the ground and they just don't come out and really fill out over the course of the season. Wishbone plant is one of the common name for the Terrenia, and also Steph always likes them because it looks like it's like a mouth singing, like open, you know, singing flower, and they look happy here in the garden. The combo of the different various colors are fantastic, and again, it's just you know, if you've got a shade space in your garden, you've got some little holes, patches where maybe you're waiting for shrubs to fill in, perfect thing to plug in. In this particular type of planting, this is a little different than that Summer Jewel Salvia that I just showed, where we did a swath, and it's always going to be a repeated swath every year. These are just little plug-in places along the path, and what we'll do is we'll take about a trowel full of compost and amend each individual hole as we go. and that's helpful enough that it gets them going. They will not perform like they would in a dedicated annual bed where I had really broken it all up, but not quite as well as that, but they do well enough. And what we'll, we're not fertilizing our annuals, very, very little. We fertilized back the garden before the annuals ever went in the ground, and we'll observationally take a look at them. If they seem slow, if they seem to be underperforming, we'll address them with some fertilizer at that point. But again, I don't think we've readdressed this group along this path yet this season. So, but then they're looking good. So I'm just looking at it going, hey, it's doing okay. I'll just leave it be. If I feel like it's not, then we'll fertilize them. Next up is this dark opal basil. Basil can be grown as a perennial if you want to. Most basils can be brought in and used as perennials, but most people grow them as annuals. There's all kinds of different basils we could grow, culinary basils and non-culinary basils. Some people will grow them as pollinator plants because they do flower. We typically will take the flowers. We have one in the garden right now that is flowering, and we'll pinch the flowers out of them typically just to have the plant fill in. So when this tries to flower, if we pinch that flower out, it'll make the plant fill in just a little bit more. And then later in the summer, we'll let them come out and flower because they are good pollinator plants. These are in the, another thing in the mint family, the Lamiaceae, and so typically deer don't eat them, rabbits don't eat them. One thing I'll say, when you're using dark foliage like this, these do need a lot of sun. Basil needs a lot of sun, and if you put them in too little light, they will be on the greener side. But when you're using dark foliage things like this, notice how it contrasts well with variegated things and silver things. You need contrasting color to get dark foliage things to show up. So things that are variegated, chartreuse, anything that's kind of different than this in some way. Otherwise, sometimes in the shadows, in a border, these dark foliage things will just kind of disappear on you. They'll just be, if you stand back 20 feet from them, you can't make out any detail in them really, unless you have contrasting things around them. But really easy plant, and this is another one, and I don't care what kind of basil it is. It can be whatever culinary basil you want to grow, decorative basil you want to grow. This is an easy entry into seed. Okay, basil seeds will germinate within days and are easy to transition out into the garden typically. Like kind of moist, well-drained soil and lots of sun, and that's about it. Again, some pinching on them to get the flowers out of them will typically fill them in a little bit more, because once they start flowering, it can really take some energy away from the producing leaves. And if you're using them for culinary reasons, obviously the leaves are the part that we eat. So keep that in mind. But this dark opal basil we use as a decorative plant here in the garden pretty much every year, and it's really super easy. As a person who's been involved in horticulture for 40 years, I can tell you that these beacon impatiens are pretty exciting. This is an annual that we can do from seed in our garden that, back when I started in this business, we used to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of trays of impatiens. And, this is a great shade annual flowering plant that flowers like this all summer long, but sometime there in the 90s, these just started, downy mildew just kind of took over, and they became harder and harder to grow. They were still available on the tables places, but they just became really problematic in the garden. Vinca did too, and we do some improved vincas as well from other diseases. But these beacon impatiens are downy mildew resistant, and just these seed went in, seed germinated. They went in the ground 6 weeks, 7 weeks at this point, and look how good they look along the border. There's a whole spectrum of colors in these impatiens, and really kind of the reintroduction of one of our great summer flowering annual plants for the garden that we can all use and enjoy without having to worry about issues with them. They're planted around an akuba here, and again, we will make sure that we don't sacrifice any of our evergreen plants or permanent plants here in the garden with these annuals, so we'll sculpt around that akuba just a little bit. But again, these are a whole spectrum of colors in these, and really, really easy, low maintenance plants that you can do inexpensively. This polka dot plant, or Hypoestes, is one that we've leaned on every year. We use these in containers, we use them in the ground. They're just really easy, really very easy plants here in the garden. Another one that does not like the dry shade. We've basically tested every annual along that back path back there, because we don't really want to be, I don't want to be putting these annual flowers in and then be having to water them and having to do so much to them during the summertime. So we've tested them in various places in the garden. Definitely in containers where they're staying slightly more moist, they perform incredibly well. And in the ground in areas that stay a little bit more evenly moist during the summer, not wet, but more evenly moist. We'll keep this one cut away from this boxwood, because again, the boxwood's the permanent piece in this. We're gonna leave this boxwood probably a couple years in this container. And so we'll, you know, kind of lean it away from it occasionally like that. That's about all we have to do. So this is the white polka dot plant. And then we have it in red, we have it in pink. There's a pink one that Steph's going to now in that other container next to that basil. We'll use these in just various combinations in containers. They can also be used as houseplants. If you want to use them as houseplants, we're using them as seeded annuals here in the garden. This series is called Splash Select that we're doing from seed. And so, you know, again, you're buying a pack of seed. There's 3, 4 plants in this container. So, you know, Steph may have just done one, you know, our trays are 50 cell trays that we seed, we plant our seed into. So she probably did a row of 5 in the tray, and it looks like there's 4 in this container. So pretty good success really for something that was super inexpensive really from seed, and you know, available in any kind of catalog that you're shopping from. We have tons of other things out here we've done from seed, but we kind of wanted to go through some of the easier ones, the kind of entryway into, you know, to seeding, you know, doing some seeding in your garden. Very overall inexpensive. I think we did 10 or 12 trays this year though total. So it was a lot of plants overall, but that included our vegetable garden, eggplants, and we do cucumbers and other things directly from seed in the ground, but our tomatoes, peppers, I can't remember what else is over there. Okra, we probably started inside from seed. Broelia right here, this red vein sorrel, all kinds of other things out here that we could show you as well. And it's 2 things. It's, you know, one, I'm gonna definitely, this video is gonna be titled in such a way about saving money here in the garden, and that's a big part of it, right? Because annuals have gotten, we can't find as many 4-packs and 6-packs of annuals as we used to. We are gonna do a follow-up video to this, to some we bought this year and we tried to save some money on as well. But you don't find as many 4-packs and 6-packs. There are a lot of single annual plants that can be $6, $8, $10. And so this is, you know, that's 2 packs of seed, you know, with hundreds of seed in it, you know, at the same price. So again, I'm going to title this thing based on that, but I think there's another level. I think if you take something from a seed back in February and start it in your house or outside, or again, whatever technique you want to use, whatever technique you're comfortable with, or that you develop on your own that works well at your house, if you take that seed and you start it and then you wait for your average last frost date, and then you improve that bed, you improve that space, and you plant that plant, and it does what you're seeing here in this garden, you know, where these annuals just kind of explode over the course of the summer, I think you're going to find a lot of joy in that. You know, having said that I started that from seed, you know, is kind of a fun thing, and something that I think that would have just been absolutely, it would have been abnormal to buy them as plants, you know, 50 years ago, and now it's abnormal to do them from seed for some reason. But anyway, there's some of the things in this garden that I think are the easier plants to get started with if you want to try things from seed next year in your garden. Thanks for watching.